in the Torah world, it doesn't matter how smart a person is. The Gemara in Masechet Moed Katan says, if he has bad character traits, it's forbidden to learn from him. If he has heretical mindset, if he says heretical things, you're not allowed to learn from him. It's like eating pig. And unfortunately, Rabotai Karim, many times, people arrive at the wrong conclusion because the source of their information is horrendous. Now, I've mentioned this person in the past, but it seems like it needs to be mentioned again because perhaps people didn't hear enough and they still do it. Or maybe I didn't say enough and people are not listening. Or simply no one cares. I'm not sure. Who do you think is the most famous American Jewish speaker is? Let's call it religious, but furthest from the truth. What do you guys think is the most famous religious? Not Friedman, Mach Shimon, no. Huh? Jonathan Sachs, no. Shapiro. What's his man's name again? First name? Ben Shapiro. Ben Shapiro is a smart, clever young man. He's probably around my age, maybe a little give or take. Speaks extremely fast, like a New Yorker. Sharp. Knows a little bit about a lot of different things and can hold a conversation with the best of them, needless to say, debate. And he wears a little kippah. So he presents Judaism for many people. It shouldn't surprise you that a few idiots have asked me if he could be MaShiach. Because he wears a kippah and once in a while he mentions God. When it suits him, people think, oh, maybe he's going to be Mashiach. Now, in order to be Mashiach, at the first least, you have to be a righteous Jew. Like you can't be a Rasha, heretic, and be Mashiach at the same time. That cannot be. Which means that at the very least, a person needs to meet the requirement of being a righteous Jew, meaning he has to believe what the Torah says, he has to follow what it says, right? Meaning you have to believe and accept the 13 principles of faith and follow what it says, right? The whole Torah. Now, because he speaks fast, because he speaks well, and even correctly on many topics politically, ignorant people, and even sometimes people that are not as ignorant but simply easily fooled and naive, assume that what he says when it comes to Torah also is correct. Like his opinion, for example, about the political situation as far as whether it be racism, whether really there is racism as much people say as there is or not, or his opinion about abortion. Many of the things that he says are correct when it comes to that. When he talks about the liberal, lefty-minded types of people and how much damage they cause to society, many of the things that he says are correct. There's no problem with it. But I wish he would just shut his mouth and stick to those topics and don't even say a single word about Torah. Because every single word that comes out of his mouth when he talks Torah is heretical. So much so, I have to mention it again today. Because his videos are extremely popular. His show is extremely popular. He gets to literally millions of followers, millions of listeners. And many ignorant people, Jews and non-Jews alike, actually think that what he says is correct. And no one is speaking against it from the Jewish world. A few Christians are speaking against it, but everything they believe is also wrong. So who's listening to them? So the problem is that he says things that are completely idiotic, and when it comes to the truth. But worse yet, they're against the 13 principles of faith. For example, he does not believe in things that he can't prove scientifically. That in itself is heretical. That in itself is heretical. That's a philosopher-minded person. That's how the philosophers in Greece and Rome, that's what they had a belief. The way they tried to destroy Judaism and Torah world, say, look, we can't see God, therefore it doesn't exist. It's like, see, there's a closet, okay, so you know the closet exists. You see that there is a building, okay, so you know the building exists. You see that there's a chair, okay, so you know that the chair exists. Do you see God? Oh, you don't see God, okay, so therefore God doesn't exist. Until a clever young Jewish guy came in, a little Jewish kid says, oh, you see the chair? Yeah, so you know the chair exists. You see the books? Okay, so the books exist. You see the people? So the people exist. You see the teacher's brain? No. Okay, so it doesn't exist. So he has the mentality that if he doesn't see things, therefore he doesn't know whether they exist or not, and he gives the impression that it may or may not. In Judaism, we don't have such luxury to say maybe yes, maybe not, and whatever we feel like it. So, for example, when he was asked by some atheist that he had a sit-down with, which, by the way, according to the Gemara and the Shulchan Aruch, you're not allowed to have conversations with such people. The Gemara in Masechet Avodah Zarah says that Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenos benefited by simply enjoying one word, like a joke, that a Christian said, and a Kadosh Baruch Hu almost killed him for it. Not allowed to have these debates with Christians just for the sake of a show, or have these discussions, these sit-down coffee discussions with people. Oh, let me talk to the atheist and have a nice conversation. You're not allowed to have such things. Why? Because Jewish people follow you, they could potentially follow him as a result too. This atheist, this heretic, because of you. Yeah, but that's my show. Okay, well, you should change your show then. What can I tell you? And he has these debates with Christian missionaries and alikes, and atheists, and all types of people that we as a Jews are not allowed to listen to. Hence the reason why all of a sudden in the last few years, many modern Orthodox Jews began to have an interest in Christianity. This is one of the sources. Because he's very popular and he speaks to Christians on a regular basis, especially the Christian missionary types. He speaks to them and debates with them. Many modern Orthodox people get to see a little bit of Yoshke in their life. A little bit of Mary, a little bit of Yoshke, maybe some Yossi. But you have a keep on. Yeah, keep on. You're still a Jew. That's what happens. That's what happens in this philosophical type of minded. You allow yourself to roam in the lion's den. Now he allows himself to roam in the lion's den because he did good in the political world as far as speaking against and tearing down a few people, so he figures that he could take on religion also. And unfortunately he's destroying any one of his listeners that has any inclination to Judaism at all. Why? Because everything he says is wrong. It's simply wrong. He says that he doesn't believe that there is a soul or an afterlife because he's not really sure. Or maybe there is, but I'm not really sure. But probably not. That's what he says. So in essence, you die, probably nothing going on. You just turn to a tree. Just turn to a tree. Why is he so? The guy asks him, so why do you keep the mitzvot? Why do you keep the Torah? He goes, I keep the Torah because I think that by following the religion, it's just simply going to give you a better quality of life and a better society. Not because God said so. Because it's better to have rules. The Rambam writes, a goy, needless to say a Jew, a goy that keeps the 7 Noahide laws just because they make sense to him, because he thinks it's going to give him a better life, and not because God said so, not only is called a fool, in heaven, but on top of it does not get rewarded for them. Does not go to heaven. It goes to Gehinnom. Why? You only go to heaven if you listen to the Torah because God said so. Not because it makes sense to you not to murder. Not because it makes sense to you not to steal. But the little Kippah guy from the blog, Ben Shapiro, no, he does it because he thinks it's better for society, it's better for humanity to keep it.
Where we were.
Well, do you believe there's a soul or something like a soul, a pattern of information that represents who you are that floats off the body and continues on? After
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I don't know. And I don't think anybody has a great verifiable account of that. Right. I have suspicions, but again, they're suspicions, less about knowledge. What I do know, and the reason why I'm religious, is that a religious lifestyle that is based on certain fundamental premises, I think makes life better for people. I think that the rules that are set down, as currently understood at least, are rules that are likely to lead you to leading a happier and better life than your pure reason alone. Because pure reason alone, unleashed, without even those moorings in Judeo-Christianity, can lead to a lot of really terrible places.
Furthermore, doesn't really believe in reincarnation. Doesn't believe in reincarnation. Doesn't make sense to him. Resurrection of the dead, doesn't really agree with what the sages said because he thinks that the whole issue of reincarnation and just the whole mystical aspect of the Torah is just something that came up recently as a defense against Christianity. That's how little he knows. He thinks that the whole mystical part of the Torah is something that came up in recent generations as a defense against the Christian idol worship. This is how stupid he is when it comes to Torah. I wish he was half as smart about Torah as he is about all the other nonsense that he talks about and the serious things that he talks about. But the problem is that the ego has grown so much, he simply assumes knowledge. Assumes knowledge.
So I was curious, by the way, that the ancient Jews said the Sheol, and you don't go anywhere after your death, right?
Yeah, the idea of the afterlife is a pretty modern invention in Judaism.
Yeah.
It really only crops up, historically speaking, a little bit in the prophets, and it's usually the late prophets.
Right.
And it's really maybe as a response to early Christianity or Greek thought. So yeah, in the Bible itself, there's no reference. In the Torah, there's no reference to the afterlife.
So what do you think happens after the death of your body?
So I mean, I only have suspicions because, again, unverifiable. My suspicion is that if there is a God, which I believe, who exists outside of time and space, and that what animates me is that I'm made in the image of God, and that what animates my capacity is that I'm made in the image of God, that I reunify with God. That basically there's the traditional Jewish take on this has been that there's a cleansing process. Judaism doesn't believe in eternal hell. So it's instead this idea that there's a cleansing process for your soul, the part that you got from God, that spark of life that you got from God. You've schmutzed it up while you're alive, and now there's a cleansing process, and that's what hell is, sort of. And then you are reunited with God, and you have greater understanding. The idea of me being a distinct personage outside of my body, I think, is a difficult one. That's my own personal belief.
So you don't think you're physically resurrected into heaven with God?
No, yeah, I think that
something like a soul or energy or consciousness or something like that. Yeah.
Yes, a form, like an Aquinas form, right? But yes, I think that those are actually two different things in Judaism as well. Like the idea of Tichiyat HaMetim, which is the idea of resurrection of the dead, that's a different idea than what happens after you die, right? Tichiyat HaMetim is the idea that eventually the Messiah comes, that we'll all be resurrected back in our physical bodies at a certain point, which, honestly, given the nature of how science is moving and the possibilities of cloning, is actually less crazy than it sounded probably a couple of thousand years ago.
Yeah, I debunk most of the modern, the singularity's coming, we're going to upload everybody into the cloud, and this is not going to happen. No, definitely not.
That's good to know, because I just feel like the computer would be really weird. It's weird to live inside a computer. But
or that we're living in a computer now, but there's no buffering or little pixels that are going off.
One of the worst things that I think is just completely ridiculous, but unfortunately I believe many people will believe him in this, is when the guy asked him about Mashiach. He says, "You wait for Mashiach?" He says, "Yeah, but it's not the same. It's not Mashiach like people think, like it's going to be some mystical figure. No, I'm waiting for a strong politician to come and bring order to the world."
You're not waiting for the Messiah to come.
Right.
He's not coming in the
So
in
I'm
physical form.
waiting for the Messiah to come in the form of a political figure, right? So the Messiah in Judaism is a guy who's going to come back and is going to establish peace in Israel and is going to assure that there's sort of a happier world with a bunch of political aspects to it, as explained by Maimonides. But he's going to die too, right? He's not going to come back and everybody lives forever and any of that kind of stuff.
He's a corporeal agent. He's just like us.
Right. In the Jewish view, any person could be the Messiah. Any Jew can be the Messiah in the Jewish view. Right. So I could be it. Who knows? But it's not, I'm not. But
you're off to a good start.
He thinks the Mashiach is going to be a politician. HaShem yishmor v'yatzil. If the Mashiach is a politician, we should all commit suicide. The qualifications for a politician is to be a liar. A liar and a liar. You don't have to do anything else other than be a liar. The people running for the highest office are typically the biggest liars. Somebody showed me a video that apparently just hit the tape again of this imbecile Joe Biden, who's running for president now. One of the dumbest people in the universe is fooling the rest of the universe at the same time, which shows how stupid the rest of society is. He was caught lying on TV 20, 30 years ago about everything. He says he has 3 degrees from college, barely has 1. Said that he was a top of his class in college. Out of 82 students, he was 75th, meaning he was retarded. He wasn't even top 50 percentile. The degrees he says he has, he doesn't have. The accomplishments he says he has, he doesn't have. He doesn't even know how to speak. Needless to say, to speak for himself. They have pictures of him during a debate with Donald Trump where he's getting fed lines. There's a microphone in his hand, a microphone in his ear. Someone is telling him what to say. He doesn't know how to speak. In a debate, the whole point is to know what you have on your mind. He has people telling him what to say. When he gives a speech, he reads from a thing. Somebody's telling him what to say. To a news network. About himself, he doesn't know what to say. When he was told, read off these numbers, this report of coronavirus, of how many deaths there happened, and so on. He doesn't know numbers. He says 1,000 and 100 and 5,000 and 6,000 and 5,000 and 6,000. All is one number. All of this is, he doesn't know anything. And guess what? He could potentially be the next president of the United States. One of the dumbest people that ever walked the surface of the earth could potentially be in a position of power, which really means the people behind them become president. We just don't know who they are. So you don't really have to be smart to be dangerous. But when you're smart, it actually makes you more dangerous. Needless to say, Ben Shapiro, in my opinion, more dangerous than Biden to the Jewish world. Why? Because many Jews, especially young ones, listen to him and hold what he says as this is Judaism. Why? He has a kippah on. He's modern Orthodox. He says he's, modern Orthodox. He doesn't deny it. He says he's proud to be a Jew. But once in a while, he'll say something heretical that either you don't know that it's heretical, or if it is, you're just like, oh, he probably has a source because he's so smart and he says it so quickly, he probably knows what he's talking about. So when he says that he thinks the Mashiach is going to be a politician, people are like, oh, you know what, that makes sense. Maybe, you know what? Maybe I thought, you know what? Maybe Trump is going to be Mashiach. Yeah, but he has to be a Jew too. No. Ben Shapiro will figure that out. Maybe Ben Shapiro is going to run for office and he's Mashiach really. And people have all these ludicrous beliefs when a person doesn't know the very basics of Judaism. Doesn't know anything, any basics about Judaism. Violates the 13 principles of faith openly and in public. Says that the things that you prayed for, all of you prayed for on Yom Kippur. You had a Vidui Gadol. And the Vidui Gadol, you said, I'm sorry for a lot of things. But you know also what you said I'm sorry for? You said, I'm sorry for all the things you did during this life and the previous life. Meaning what? Reincarnation and a soul is not a mystical belief that only some people follow. It's the foundation of Judaism. It's the fundamentals of Judaism. It's not something that just came up and you could choose. It's in your machzor. You said, I'm sorry for your previous life. Meaning, you testified that you have lived before this life. So, when someone says things like that so carelessly, and just has conversations with heretics like they're friends, guess what? Not only does it show that they're damaged, they've become a heretic, they are a heretic, but all of the fans, all of the listeners, all of the people that are listening to him, especially after today, after listening to today, for sure are either heretics or on their way to being heretics. Now you're going to say, wait a minute, but he's really popular. Maybe he could do this, maybe he could do that. Alvai does TeShuva. But Rabotai, popularity doesn't mean good. Big noise doesn't mean good. The Sefer Melachim, Aleph, Kings 1, has an extraordinary story in it that gives us a little bit of an idea of what to expect as far as how MaShiach is going to show up. Because most of us, we think that MaShiach is going to come in some type of flashy way. All of a sudden, some politician takes off the mask and says, I am Mashiach. Or some guy on YouTube says, I am Mashiach. And makes some type of scene. It doesn't work that way. It won't work that way. I promise you it won't work that way. Eliyahu Navi did everything and anything possible that he could to defend the honor of HaShem. In chapter 19 of the book of Kings 1, Eliyahu Navi is fleeing Achav and Izebel after they killed righteous prophets, and he rebuked them. They tried to kill him and he fled them. He eventually gets to the desert, can't find any food, and he passes out after crying to HaShem that he tried his best, it's not working, there's no food, there's no nothing, I guess HaShem wants to kill me, that's it, I don't deserve to live. Suddenly, an angel of HaShem comes to Eliyahu Navi, wakes him up, and tells him, eat this. And miraculously, there was a little bit of food and water next to Eliyahu Navi in the middle of the desert. Eliyahu, so tired and consumed and literally on the verge of dying, he was barely able to get up and eat the food. He drank, he ate, and he passed out. Shortly later, that same angel wakes him up again, says, eat this. More food. You're going to need it because the journey is long. He eats the food and gets superhuman powers to allow him to walk through the desert for 40 days and 40 nights without eating and drinking, or stopping, or sleeping. This is in the Tanakh. Supernatural, but it's literal. After 40 days and 40 nights of walking through the desert, he arrives at Mount Cholev, Mount Sinai. Gets to the mountain. This is where Hashem wants him to be. But he doesn't know why, because Hashem hasn't spoken to him in a long time. Last he heard of him was 40 days ago from the angel. Suddenly he hears a message. Why are you here, Elijah? Ma lecha po Eliyahu. What are you doing here? What do you do in Mount Sinai? In essence, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is asking him, what's your best merit that allows you to be here? Why? If I was Eliyahu, I'd say, listen, I prayed every day in the morning, in the afternoon, at night, I learned Torah, I did mitzvot, and by the way, I did some rebuking, I did some this and did some that. I mentioned everything, the whole cheshbon, everything I ever did since the time I was born. Everything I remember, I'm going to mention. Eliyahu Navi mentions one thing. Says, one mitzvah I did, that's everything. Vayomer, kano kineti la Adonai Elohai tzevaot. כי עזבו בריתך בני ישראל, את מזבחותיך הרסו, ואת נביאיך הרגו בחרב. He says to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I have acted with great zealousness for HaShem, God of legions. For the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant. They have raised your altars, and have killed your prophets by the sword. ויוותר אני לבדי ויבקשו את נפשי לקחתה. And he says to him, and now I alone have remained, and they now seek to take my life. In essence, Eliyahu Navi tells HaKadosh Baruch Hu, why am I here? I was the only guy that was zealous for you. I was the only guy that rebuked Am Yisrael because they went against the Torah. They said heretical things. They worshipped idols. They did all types of things. I fought for your name. That's it. Forget about my prayers. Forget about my tzedakah. Forget about my learning. Forget everything else. This is why am I here? You're asking me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu? I'm here because I fought for you. Many stupid people say, oh, why does Hashem need you to fight for him? No, he doesn't need you to fight for him. He wants you to fight for him. Eliyahu Navi could have answered any other answer. He was a righteous person. He was a tzaddik, talmid chacham, kodesh kodeshim. But Eliyahu says, I was zealous. I fought for your name. When? And everybody else was going against you. And now, because I went against them and for you, they all want to kill me. Not just write stupid comments about me on the internet. Not just not donate. Not just steal money. Not just ban you. No, they want to kill me, Hashem. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu responds to him in kind. He says to Eliyahu, go out in the cave and stand on the mountain. Stand on top of the mountain. Hashem is saying, I'm going to show you myself. It says, and behold, Hashem was passing, and great powerful wind, smashing mountains, and breaking rocks, went before Hashem. But then a message came out. Hashem is not in the wind. There's a big wind. Wow, Hashem's in the wind. He's probably somewhere in this tornado. Passes, and the message comes out. Hashem is not the wind. He's not inside the wind either. Then after that, a huge noise, an earthquake. See, the whole mountain is shaking. The ground is shaking. And the message comes out. Hashem is not in the earthquake. Hashem is not in the earthquake. Lo baruach Hashem. And after the earthquake comes a fire. And again, it says Hashem is not in the fire. And after all of this theatrics, this extraordinary miracles after miracle, I can't even imagine what Eliyahu Navi was looking at. Suddenly, nothing. no noise at all. No sound at all. And that's when HaShem shows up. The Gemara in Masechet Brachot, page 48a, says from here we learn that when the king arrives, everything is quiet. Meaning that all of these theatrics and craziness that happens, that's before the king comes. Once the king shows up, everybody's quiet. If they're still noisy, he's not the king. He's not the king. In the world today, people are scared of celebrity status, whether losing it or going against it. People are scared to go against the norm, even though the norm is abnormal. Why? There's a lot of noise everywhere. But don't think that just because something is popular, that's what HaShem wants. There's 2 billion plus people that are Muslims that want to kill Jews. There's 2.5 billion Christian idol worshippers that are killing Jews spiritually on a regular basis. And at times also physically too. There are billions of people that are 100% idol worshippers from all countries and so on. You can't get any proofs as of validation of any kind as a result of large numbers. It doesn't mean anything. But you see, Rabotai, what you can get is 100% certainty. 100% certainty from just a few Jews. Because why? They rely on an opinion. It's the only opinion that counts. It's God's opinion. And God tells us His opinion, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, through His sages. If any of us goes against, especially openly, nonchalantly, carelessly, and arrogantly, against the opinions of our sages that were accepted as halacha, accepted as this is the foundation of Judaism, guess what? You officially become a void. You officially become something we ignore. You officially become something we don't listen to. Why? Because what you're saying is antithetical to our belief system. Whether you wear a kippah or not is irrelevant. Whether you have a beard or not is irrelevant. There are many people that have kippahs and beards that are horrible people, and many that are good people. There are many people that don't necessarily wear a kippah that are decent people. Now, you already know my opinion about Manis Freedom al-Rasha. Every day he comes out with more videos that are worse than the ones from before. And he continues to get more and more popular by the day. Just today or yesterday, he got highlighted by some news outlet by having a video saying, "Don't fear." Like you shouldn't fear anything, as if there's nothing to be scared of, including God. And he continues to get more and more popular, and they continue to invite him in different synagogues that he's never been in a Sephardic community, in Ashkenazi community, Hasidic community. He's invited everywhere. People simply are following the footsteps of the heretic. But guess what? He is a microcosm in comparison to a Ben Shapiro that has many more followers, both Jews and non-Jews. Meaning that he is not only hurting his fellow Jews with his heretical beliefs, but on top of it, he's giving the non-Jewish world ammunition to go against our belief system, because he's showing something that's the opposite of true. So it's very important for us to know that if you're going to continue listening to people that are heretics, you become a partner in a crime. And with that being said, Rabotai, you have to make sure that you take these things seriously, not make any type of fighting wars on the internet. I hate you, you hate me. Not to make machloket between you and other Jews. Not to make a whole, who can insult each other better. But rather, you have to be careful with which friends you choose and where you spend your time. If your rabbi, your speaker, is a follower of atheists, is a friend of idol worshippers and so on, guess what? You're going to become one too. And this is the reason why Shapiro is moving to Boca Raton, by the way. There's a rabbi that's a perfect fit over there. No, he really is. He's moving to Boca Raton. That community. Why? Because that's his foundation, and that's where there's further teaching there. I wish he did TeShuva because I think he could do a lot of good. I just don't think it's likely. Why? He would have to stop what he's doing and actually start learning Torah. But that's not good for business. His business. And the only reason why I go public with stuff like this is because I know this is really the only way to get the message out there. To do private teachings, oh listen, Ben, you should change. It's not going to work. Why? Because those messages, those videos of his heretical teachings are out there in the millions. He would have to literally remove every single video he's made talking about religion, and on top of it, file copyright infringement on any single person that ever has his video on there, which is not happening, because then they would file against him and so on. Meaning, the damage is too big to fix. Hopefully, he can do TeShuva at least to contain his own life, but I don't know how he can fix the rest of it. My concern is not really him. My concern is his followers, his listeners, that think that he's right. Because he's right on some other things, he's right on this. To say that, you don't necessarily believe in an afterlife 100% because there's no real proof to it, or the issues with souls, or that the MaShiach has to be a politician, or other different things that I've heard him say in different short clips that people have sent me that are literally antithetical to Judaism altogether. Or simply, just by itself, him saying that he only keeps the Torah because he thinks it makes sense for society, and not necessarily because God said so. Or best yet, my favorite, he says that Judaism does not believe in eternal punishment. Even though the Ramban writes in Sha'ar HaGmul that eternal punishment is very much a fundamental belief of Judaism. The Gemara Masechet Rosh Hashanah, page 17a and 16b, both say that eternal Gehinnom is very much standard in Judaism. And many other places, but no, Ben Shapiro, that never even finished anything in his life according to the Torah, he just decides that no, we don't believe in eternal Gehinnom. We don't believe in it. It's just a cleanup process because you have some schmutz, but then everything's okay. In so many words, Rabotai, he created a new religion, and he made Donald Trump or whoever right-minded person as the MaShiach. That's what he did, and that's a very, very dangerous person. Much more dangerous than a lot of people think. He may very well be a nice person, but apparently all the Netflix that he watches, all the movies that he talks about, apparently they made his mind a little stupid spiritually. A little stupid spiritually. And unfortunately, when you're a public person, it's too expensive for you to be stupid spiritually. Why? Because now your opinion is now other people's knowledge. Your opinion is other people's knowledge. Therefore, when your opinion is against the Torah, their knowledge is against the Torah. Therefore, they are going to go to Gehinnom because of you. So the only hope we have in order to reach some of those people is hopefully they watch this, or they hear about it from somebody else. It's really the only hope. At least we made our effort. But that's it, Rabotai. I'm not interested in debating him or anybody else. I have nothing in this. It's just that there's so much damage being caused by ourselves, by our own people. Our own people. And no one's really doing enough about it. So hopefully we could do something, maybe to encourage others to do more. But either way, the Torah itself tells us that we have an obligation. We have an obligation to say something.
B'Shem Hashem Na'aseh v'Natzliach, we're very excited to offer you the new BeEzrat Hashem app 3.0. It's a newer, faster app full of Torah, lots of Kedusha by the Shiurim that we do, myself, Rav Ephraim, Rav Chaim, where you'll have also newer features where you're able to use the app while you're using other applications on your phone. You'll be able to share the lectures directly from the app. You'll be able to donate online and support our Cube and our Torah work that we're doing. And the most exciting feature is that you'll be able to actually ask questions directly on the app and get answers from the rabbis directly from the app. This is something unprecedented, and Baruch Hashem will be able to offer it. Thank you again for all of your support. Check it out. Make sure you have the kosher Torah that will re-energize your neshama each and every single day. Call to B'chava Tzlacha.